think both of us just want to share our hearts are with the people suffering in Los Angeles with the fires. I know Jack usually is home safe now, but lives right near there. And I went to school out there. So I know that it's a place near and dear to us. So hopefully everybody is safe and evacuating, and hopefully there's light at the end of this tunnel. Now onto our episode of supporting actress.
It's our penultimate acting breakdown video for supporting actress. This is compared to, I think, especially the last category we did, a more up in the air category, the SAG nominations, which threw a few wrenches in here. Also after the Golden Globe winners, after a few different things that have happened, unlike our previous acting breakdowns. So we have a little more knowledge of the race, but it's pre-BAFTA nominations, which are pretty important. So yeah, this is an interesting race. I think it'll come down to 2 for the win, but those 3 spots for the nomination, I think, are really up in the air, besides 1. But before we get into each individual contender, break down their pros and cons, if we think they'll get in, the precursors they have hit and could hit. What are your overall thoughts on the race of supporting actress, Anthony?
I think what's going to help me is build who are the people, what is the overall picture? I don't think you can look at the nominees independently. You have to look at the narrative as a whole. Who are the 5 people in like unison that are going to make sense? I think that's sometimes where we run into issues, is we'd be like, well, this person makes sense and this person makes sense, but like we have to make sure that a large group that is representative of the amount of people voting, they're all represented. I think that's what's led us to like Isabella Rossellini, for example. We'll get into, like, she makes sense as a counterweight to the Ariana Grandes and the Zoe Saldanas. So
the leads, the actual supporting.
That's true. So that's what I'm kind of going into this. I'm looking for like what balances out our 5.
Let's get into our individual contenders. Let's start with who I think is still currently perceived as the current frontrunner, won the Golden Globe, hasn't missed a single precursor thus far. Let's talk about Zoe Saldana in Emilia, Perez.
To listen is to accept.
She plays Rita, a Mexican lawyer who is offered and accepts the job to help a cartel boss retire and transition into a woman. I think she's really got mostly pros going in her favor here. She's a lead, which I think could be seen as a con, but I think in these categories it's pretty much a pro, because she's got all the screen time, she's got more to do. This is, as we'll talk about with another performance, supporting actress is a category where musical performances in particular tend to most often win. As we were talking about as well, Emilia Perez is a top tier Best Picture contender, which only helps. She does all of the emotional stuff. She cries, she sings, she dances. I think one thing that also really helps her is that she is showing another side of her talent here. I think she manages to somehow be like a revelation and discovery to people, while also still having the advantage of being like an established, recognized actress. So she's kind of able to have the best of both worlds there. An American movie star who is in a film that appeals to international voters. So she's kind of getting a domestic international appeal there within the voting body. The only negative is Emilia Perez is divisive on the internet, though. It's clearly, in my opinion, not divisive amongst the people within the industry, because I can't really say it's underperformed anywhere. I guess you could say SAG, but I don't think Selena Gomez missing there is like a huge underperformance. And everywhere else, I think it's really overperformed.
Nominated as part of the ensemble too. Like Gomez, she still received a nomination for that film.
She did. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you completely. I think your encapsulation of Saldaña's chances is right on the money. I agree with you that what could take her out is just if the movie overall starts to underperform. And right now we don't, the fact that Jacques Audiard got a DGA nomination, it hasn't happened yet. But it's possible. This could go the route of La La Land, where it becomes the most nominated movie of the season when it hits the Academy Awards. And if people feel like it's not like, okay, let's see what you got then, and they're turned off from it post-nomination, we could see it literally go the same way. And then in that, but I still struggle to see where, even if the movie was underperforming, I feel like this is one of the categories it would be recognized in regardless, because Saldaña, as like separate from the movie, is so deserving, and she's been like a stable part of this industry for so long. I'm really interested to see what happens at SAG, because I do think Ariana Grande's best chance is probably at SAG. Given how much they showed to love, it's really the only place that I think you can say that Wicked overperformed. Critics' Choice, kind of. Ariana Grande could win Critics' Choice, and then maybe she wins SAG. And if that starts to happen, then maybe they, and then maybe BAFTA goes Isabella Rossellini. Who knows? They could go Zoe Saldaña too. It could be this really interesting.
It did lead the long lists.
Yeah. they go in even-handed, and then it just happens. What movie are they more in the mood for? So I think right now Saldaña is your number one. She should be. I think there's enough going in her favor, and I still think there's going to be a little bit. We can now shift to Ariana Grande, where there's going to be like, this was really impressive. We love this performance, but it was your first bout at this, and the nomination is the win. I get a sense that that might be a little bit of the vibe with her, but she could overcome that. I think I've seen enough people really praise her.
As you said, let's transition into her main competitor here. The top two. Ariana Grande plays Glinda the Good Witch.
Oh, hello. It's good to see me, isn't it?
Former friend of Elphabuz, who tells the story of their friendship during their school years. I think you covered the cons a little bit against her. I do think pros-wise, though, I think it's more the type of musical performance that I think tends to win in this category when compared to Zoe Saldana. It's more traditional in that sense. Similar to Zoe Saldana, she also does the whole gamut of emotions here. She's funny, which I don't think Zoe Saldana really has in her favor, but she gets to be emotional. She sings, dances, she does all of that stuff. She's in a big box office hit, as we said. I think she doesn't have the benefit that Zoe Saldana has of being an established actress, but she did manage to surprise everyone with this performance. I think even more so than Zoe Saldana did, because Zoe was an established
I mean,
actress.
this was a true discovery, and she defied expectations. I think Zoe Saldana didn't defy expectation because we know she's a great actress, or we didn't know Ariana Grande was an actress. At least to this degree. Victorious fans, don't at me.
She's great in that, but yes, not the same level of performance.
But I do think that if Emilia Perez starts to falter, I know that I still think Zoe Saldana is the most. I mean, that and Best Original Song, I think no matter what happens with the movie, that will continue to do well. And right now, again, there's no signs that it is going to
international.
Yeah. It has the potential, because I do think we both agree Emilia Perez is the closest thing we have to a front runner. And if it's able to maintain that for the next 2 months, like that would be impressive. I do think, though, that this is what helps Ariana Grande is I do think when it comes to above the line chances, this is probably the best shot Wicked has. And so if there is a lot of love for Wicked, if it, let's say, wins Best Ensemble at SAG, if it maybe wins PGA, I could see a world where maybe they want to give Wicked an above the line win, and this would be the best chance at that. And because, Best Actress is all over the place. I know we're in the Demi Moore haze, but we have to acknowledge that movie still isn't up to the entire Academy's taste. And maybe Carla Sofia Gascon is able to come out from behind and win actress. And maybe that's where the Emilia Perez acting win happens. There's room for Ariana Grande to grow, is basically what I'm saying. But I do think right now she's going to have to be taken more seriously than I've seen people take her right now, at least in the conversation. I think people are just saying that she's the bridesmaid of this year. Also, because I feel like there's a sense of what will this award achieve. Like, I feel like if she was talking more about like what she wants to do beyond Glinda, maybe people would be like, okay, this is an investment in a great new actor. Where like that's what they're doing. It's always Saldaña, is that we're honoring 25 years of acting. I feel like that has something to do with it, and because they kind of feel like this is just Ariana Grande popping in, doing Glinda, and then she's going to go back to her
music.
Lady Gaga, like her whole thing when she was doing A Star Is Born is she wants to be known as an actor. She was, talking seriously about her craft and stuff. I just don't see that yet out of Ariana Grande. It might be coming. She might be very careful about when she talks about her process and stuff. But until I see that, I still think they're going to lean more towards the gravitas of somebody like Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, part of this does remind me of last year, where I think the internet kind of wanted the more comedic, bubbly performance of Ryan Gosling as Ken to win. But at the end of the day, they went with, even though I think Ryan Gosling definitely had more Oscar nominations than Robert Downey Jr., the industry went with, I think, the more veteran actor, Marvel actor, who's in the stronger film overall. And I kind of see that being the case here, where Emilia Perez is my current Best Picture frontrunner. It's a stronger film than Wicked. And I think Zoe Saldana is the more veteran actress compared to, and the more serious performance in a way compared to Ariana Grande as Glinda. So I do think that is something working against her, as well as Wicked being weaker internationally, as we see with the Golden Globes and the box office, and the Academy every year continues to become more international. And Emilia Perez is the international film of the year. So I think that only boasts Zoe Saldana even more. I think that's pretty much it for Ariana Grande. I think we've covered all of that. Let's talk about the other pop star. Let's get all of that Stan stuff out of the way so you Stans can end the video after this. Let's talk about Selena Gomez in Emilia Perez. She plays Jessie, the wife of Emilia Perez, when she was a cartel boss who now believes her partner is dead. I think this is an interesting one for me. I think pros, she's in a top tier Best Picture contender, as we always talk about. That helps for sure. She could be a coattail nom if the film is super strong. We see lately, besides last year, a lot of double nominees in supporting categories, and this is the only scenario where that could happen this year.
Yeah.
But as we saw last year, that doesn't have to happen every year. It's an emotional, showy role. She does get to like cry and be mad and scream and all that stuff.
She sings too. Yeah.
She sings too, which is a strength of hers, of course. And she has industry connections, like Meryl Streep. Everyone on Only Murders in the Building. I think I saw Meryl Streep like hosted a Q&A screening session with her, so that can only help. She's been campaigning. But I do think when you look at her performance, no offense to the Selena Gomez stance, in comparison to the other two that are in the film that are in contention this award season, Saldana and Gascon, I do think it pales in comparison a little bit. I don't think
she's
it's
a
quite
supporting
as good
performance, and the other two are leads.
Well, but yeah, that's fair. But I think even then, I think you can see those actresses maybe have a little more. What would you say?
I think
experience.
The characters, I think, have more complexity. I mean, I think Selena Gomez is just her style of acting. I mean, we see the same thing on Only Murders. She's a very reserved actor. And I think people equate that with her personality off camera as well. But it's a worthy performance. I think the question comes down to how much do they love Emilia Perez, and do they feel like, are the people that are going to vote for Ariana Grande, are those the same people that feel really passionate about Selena Gomez? And does that mean that Ariana is kind of stealing away people that could like put her at like number one positions? You know, if she's this sort of like also ran like, oh yeah, Selena Gomez, she was also good, I think she'll struggle. Because I mean, we have a lot of people who I think are going to be very impassioned to vote for in this category. And I think SAG did tell a story that Selena Gomez was good, but she's not a priority for anybody. Because even like when you look at the double nominees from years past from movies, for like two people from one film, you know, there was not a consensus over who was better, Rachel Weisz or Emma Stone from The Favorite. There was not a consensus, I feel, over who was better in The Irishman, Al Pacino or Joe Pesci. There were people who were in both camps. Sometimes it leaned in one direction, but not always. You know, ignoring Judas and the Black Messiah, because I still don't know what the hell happened with that.
They were both leads, so yeah.
But so I think that's the issue here, is that I haven't seen anybody except the hardcore Selena fans say that she is objectively better than Zoe Saldana, and so that hurts. I think that you need I always say that you need somebody to think you're the best in order to get into the category. And I just don't see anybody thinking that Selena Gomez is the best supporting actress performance of the year. So despite those connections, I think she's climbing an uphill battle. But it could happen if they just feel like those three ladies, they all want a can, like they're a package deal. If it's just like if it's that sort of mentality that you can't nominate one without the other, even if one is, you know, superior as far as getting in, maybe that helps her. So right now I feel like she's on the bubble, maybe circling my 5. It kind of depends on how seriously you want to take the SAG contenders.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. You do have to be someone's favorite, someone's best. And I don't think, especially when you're in the same film as Zoe Saldana, who I do think is the clear supporting vote for the film, I do think that will hurt her. But she'll hit 2 of the 4 big precursors. She'll have not SAG, she'll have she got Golden Globe, and she'll probably get BAFTA, I think, at this point.
You think?
Considering how much they loved me. I mean, they long listed, what's her name? Adriana Paz. So I feel like they really like that film. But who knows? If she misses that, I'd drop her. She missed Critics' Choice.
Okay. So,
yeah, she did. So let's talk about someone else who missed at SAG. Someone who I have been doubting a little bit this season. I think maybe you have a little more faith in her. Let's talk about Felicity Jones in The Brutalist. She plays, sorry for my pronunciation, I saw the film a few weeks ago, Elizabeth Toth?
Or Elizabeth. So it's like, in the movie she says you can call
like
me
Elizabeth,
but Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Toth. She's the wife of architect Laszlo Toth and a force of nature in the film. Despite her osteoporosis, she arrives to America
2 hours in.
You are more 2 hours in, so that might be a con if people don't really like the film and they're just, the intermission hits, they're like, well, I'll just stop it at here, I've seen enough. Well, you have not seen Felicity Jones' performance at all, besides for some voiceover, so that could hurt her. But I'll let you start with the pros. Felicity Jones, The Brutalist. What's she got going in her favor?
I think that she appeals to the tonier side of the academy, the people who are, take a great deal of care about the prestige of acting. And I think she delivers a powerhouse performance. I think she plays a very complex woman, and the character, as it develops in that second half, is really captivating. I mean, she might have my favorite scene in the film. She is electrifying. I think people. She's a previous nominee, of course. I think that always helps for Best Actress for 2014's The Theory of Everything. And I do think that ultimately, like, if the Brutalist is coming on strong and it's about to release wide, or whatever wide means for a movie that's 3.5 hours from May 24, if the movie is able to pick up steam, I do think there's a world where the main trio of Brody, Pierce, and Jones do go along for the ride, because it just speaks to that, the same contingent that voted for Jesse Plemons for Power of the Dog might respond to Felicity Jones. Now, I think a couple things going against her is the fact that she's only in the second half, really, and that it seems that people prefer the first half to the second half, and she may then wear the effect of that. I also think that, going back to The Irishman, I think what we surmised was the issue with Robert De Niro is that his best moments came later in the film, in the last 45 minutes, and how many people really either made it to the end or had the wherewithal to still appreciate the movie.
Didn't fall asleep.
I wonder if that could befall her compared to Guy Pearce, who I think we would both agree has a better chance of getting into supporting actor than Felicity Jones, where he's a bigger presence throughout the entirety of the film. That being said, this is what I was talking about earlier. I think you got to paint the picture. The idea that we're going to get, Ariana Grande, Zoe Saldaña, Selena Gomez, like, this is all one type of performance or one type of voter. And I do think we're going to see people like her, Isabella Rossellini, maybe to the SAG surprises. We're going to get a wider, identity of what this category could be, I feel. And this is a direction you could go in. But I'm torn, because I don't know if I want to put that much stock in the SAG omission, because I don't think Brutalist ever felt like a SAG play.
Not at all.
So that's why I'm like, I feel like I feel like this is a general reaction that there are going to be people who saw the SAG omission for both Pierce and Jones and be like, oh, well, that's it, they're not getting up. It's like, I don't know if that's true, because I feel like if she gets BAFTA, then I think then she's hit,
3 of the 4.
Yeah, and I feel like at that point, then she's a safer bet than not. So we'll see. I think I really
only 2 of the 4 actually. She missed something. Didn't she miss Critics' Choice or something?
I missed Critics' Choice. I'm really interested to see now that Brutalist is one big at Golden Globes, what the reaction is now as people are starting to see it and discover it, going to the theaters, because that will tell a story about how the Brutalist is going to go. Is it going to join Emilia Perez as a top contender, or is it going to be one of the, Honoras of the season? We're like, it's good, it'll get in, and it will win maybe 1 or 2 things, but it's not going to be a real threat. And you always want to be in that upper echelon, especially when you're on the bubble in some of these categories.
Yeah, I do think lots of people compare in terms of like this film as an Oscar contender and its like vibe, I guess, to like A Power of the Dog, which overperformed Oscar nomination morning, got pretty much everything it could. Yeah. I do worry about this film because this film seems even more divisive from what I've seen than films like Power of the Dog or Roma that are considered the more intellectually stimulating films. So I think I'm worried about it underperforming. I also think she could be kind of like an Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer kind of performance, but there's also another performance we're going to talk about here that could also be like that, where they have that one big moment towards the end of the film that I'm not sure if we can fit both of them in there.
I also would not compare to Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt was a very much more popular actor, and she was in a much wider scene movie. I had zero doubt about Emily Blunt getting in there. Like, I almost feel like Emily Blunt was like the surefire nomination. Whether she won was a different story. But like, that was like a done deal. Where like Felicity Jones, I think because the movie is a little bit more stark, it's a little bit more. And I also think she wears what we've always talked about, which is that she's not that likable a character. So whether they take that out on her is a question. They might reward her for it, but more often than not, it seems that complex female characters do suffer in connecting in that way. So it's tough. I think I probably have her in there right now, just because I don't know the visibility for the 2 other movies that got into SAG and whether one of them will take her spot. It's easier for me to think that they will go the route of Felicity Jones, but she's wavering. I do think the more that the movie plays and the more that I see people not connect with the second half, I do worry a little bit. And whether they if they're just looking at the Brutalist as this is Adrian Brody's show, it's starting to feel like that might be what it is. So we'll see.
Yeah, because I am one of those people who is not a huge. I like the film overall, but the second half definitely isn't. It definitely dragged it down for me a little bit, and I do think I wouldn't say it's her fault, but I do think there is like a tonal vibe shift in the second half, and I do think you can attribute a lot of that to her character and what her arrival means to the entire film. So I do think, and it's also a divisive performance from what I've seen. Not everyone who I've seen who has seen the film has liked her performance. It does not work for everyone. And clearly, based off SAG, it's not working for actors in particular, this film in general, more so than other branches of the Academy. So I would say, and the actors are who end up choose the nominees at first. So we'll see. I think it's a close one for her. So we'll see for sure. Let's talk about, I think this can be a quicker one here with Danielle Deadwyler in the piano lesson.
Go home and let me finish my bath.
Who plays Bernice Charles, who opposes her brother and his wish to sell their family heirloom piano, insisting that the history the piano represents must remain within the family. She hit Golden. No, she didn't hit Golden Globe. She hit Critics' Choice, and now SAG is what she's got so far, which makes sense. I think SAG in particular, which we talked about in our predictions, August Wilson plays in those roles, do very good there, and it's also a Netflix film, and Netflix is good at getting acting nominations. SAG in particular, and also overall at the Academy in general. So that's going in her favor. It's a good performance, and I think probably the highlight of the film. But no one has seen the film. It seems there's absolutely no buzz for it, and the people who have seen it find the movie pretty middling. At least that's what I think. And most people who I've run into who have happened to see the film don't think it's anything amazing. And I don't think it's a monumental enough performance to overcome the film being super weak overall.
And I think anybody who's saying that, oh, she's going to get in because people feel guilty about her being omitted for Till, no.
They didn't see Till. Why would they feel guilty?
And yes, and even if they did, that narrative doesn't. I fail to think of I fail to recollect a time when somebody got in because they were omitted. Sometimes people win awards, win Oscars because they didn't win previously. Like Jimmy Stewart, you could make the argument that he won for the Philadelphia Story because he didn't win for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I will accept that, but they don't get nominated because they didn't get nominated before. I just don't buy that. Yeah. And so, she's in an underseen movie that's not particularly well regarded. Like, it's liked, but it's not loved. And she's also would be the only nomination for the movie, where I feel like we talked about this. We can now move on to Jamie Lee Curtis.
I'll always move in with you and pay you rent. No, my lease is up in like 10 months.
You're gonna gamble it all. I know you.
No, I'm
gonna lose my house like you lost yours.
Stop. No. Hey, Phyllis, you want another ginger ale? Oh, yeah, a little Jack Daniels. Oh, yeah, funny.
Well, Jamie Lee Curtis in The Last Showgirl plays Annette, the best friend of Pamela Anderson's Shelley, who is a former showgirl and a current waitress who comforts Anderson's Shelley and helps her adjust to life post their showgirl show ending.
We're now talking about an Oscar winner, a recent Oscar winner, who I think generally, however people feel about film Twitter, she is beloved in this industry. And so she's coming off that. She's coming off a very popular and award-winning Turn on the Bear. And now she's in a movie that more people are talking about. And The Last Showgirl is actually shaping up to be the type of Oscar movie that we used to see, where before we got all these precursors that basically told you what were the contenders before the Oscars came out. This is a movie that's just now opening wide today when we're recording this. And it could do quite well, building this last-minute sort of press run and getting people to pay attention to the film. I think that Jamie Lee Curtis is rising considerably. The one question I have throughout all of this, though, is, and this is the sad part about this all, and this is where, this stuff in the end doesn't matter. What matters is the safety of people. But do the fires in LA distract, reasonably so, away from the conversation of this movie? If this movie is hitting, New York and LA at this time, this weekend.
Pros, I saw the film at TIFF. It's a good film overall. That's an iffy film overall. I think it's carried by its performances, and I think this is a pretty good performance from her. I will say it's good. It's showy. It's the kind of performance that I think actors in particular, as we saw at SAG, can go for, because it is in a way transformative and like brave in a way. I don't want to spoil stuff, but brave in a way is all I'll say. I like her performance in this more than I liked it in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which she won an Oscar for. She already got the SAG nomination, and she's on the BAFTA long list. And if you look at her history with BAFTA, I would say she's got a decent shot at getting nominated there. She's got 3 BAFTA nominations to her 1 Oscar nomination and win. So she's got a good history over there. Like you said, she's clearly beloved within the industry. As like a cheerleader of others, like you see her on her Instagram all the time, just like posting about these films she's seen, these performances she's seen, and like how much she's rooting for them and like promoting them and loved them. And I think when those people in the industry see her cheering you on, kind of makes you want to cheer her on in a way, like return the favor. So I think there's definitely a lot of love in her for her in the industry. Could be an afterglow nom. So yeah, I think the only issue, like you said, is its last Showgirl's visibility, and it is a weak distributor. I believe it's Briarcliff Entertainment distributing it, so it's not like she's got Netflix behind her on this, or even A24 like she did with Everything Everywhere. Yeah. But as we've seen, she is a big campaigner herself, and I do think, I'm not sure when it comes to if the Academy members have seen it due to the fires and stuff. I'm not sure how early they put that stuff on the Academy portal compared to when it hits theaters. So I'm sure.
I just think that if it was going to hit, like if it was going to become like this sort of thing, like, oh, have you checked it out? It would be now. And I wonder what that, I think that we need to be talking about the fires might change a lot about how the award shows go. I mean, we've had delays. I just think that the industry is going to be in a very different place. I mean, they're going to be in a place of mourning, I think, through to the Oscars. And so that might change how they look at the season. It's something to keep in mind. This is not, if the fires hopefully are contained soon, it's not like that's the end of this episode for the people in LA.
Just the beginning.
Yeah. So just something to consider. I think you mentioned this on Twitter. This could shape a Naiads thing. We have 2 older actors who this is again talking about filling out that portfolio, making sure it's a balanced roster. It pops with the actors. It doesn't get anything else, but it doesn't need anything else. I think that's a very, very possible. I'm starting to I think Jamie might be our 5. I honestly feel.
Yeah. And their 2 performances kind of related tonight in a way that I think lots of people, especially like on film Twitter and stuff, underestimate the sway that I think some of the older Academy members can have, which I think is what got the Naiad performances in there, which were performances about like growing older, not being able to like do the same stuff and being underestimated in that way. And I think these 2 performances are similar in a way about growing older and your life when lots of different stuff changed and being underestimated and all that stuff.
There's a name that we're not mentioning when it comes to this movie, which I have to think it can't hurt you, which is,
what is it?
Coppola.
Oh yeah, it is directed by Gia Coppola. Yeah, she directed the best Coppola film this year. So there you go.
It can't hurt you to have the Coppola name behind you.
Not at all. No. And as we've talked about, Jamie Lee Curtis is great at campaigning herself. So yeah, I think we'll talk about it when we get to our final 5, but I think she's rising fast. Someone else who surprised at the SAG Awards, let's talk about Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown.
You're kind of an asshole, Bob.
If you go with snowflake storm, when the river's freezing.
Plays Joan Baez, a fellow folk singer who connects with Bob Dylan and begins to perform with him, which eventually leads to some artistic conflict between the 2. I think pros, it's always, especially when you've got actors voting for you, it's always going in your favor that you're playing a real life person and you're like mimicking their mannerisms, their voice. Actors love that. She learned to play music and sing for the film, which is incredible given how good she sounds and how similar to Baez sounds. And A Complete Unknown is continuing to be stronger than expected. I think it's doing great with the guilds. It got James Mangold in for director, so clearly the guilds and the people within the industry like the film. I do think an issue with her is she will be a sole SAG nom. Like she won't get BAFTA, she won't get anything else. And if you look at past people who just got the SAG nomination, it's very rare for them to carry over at the Oscars. So, and it's not a super emotional role in a way. It's a good, kind of like Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan. It's a good performance. It's mimicking the real life person in a good way, but it's not like the typical biopic, like emotional kind of thing that they tend to go for. So
Yeah,
she's on the bubble.
I think that James Mangold doing well at DGA, Monica Barbaro doing well here. I think it just further strengthens the possibility of a Timmy win at SAG, which then could switch the narrative and give him the Oscar win. I just see that as like any love for a complete. I mean, also I think Ed Norton might be back in the conversation, at least maybe above Guy Pearce, and maybe give Kieran Culkin a run for his money, especially if A Real Pain misses out on picture and A Complete Unknown continues to do well. I mean, that's a possibility. But I think that's where that is going to show up. I don't see a world where Monica Barbaro gets in. I think James Mangold at getting into DGA basically means that that's going to be the Coralie Farge spot at the Oscars. I kind of
it's
like
so easy to kick them out. Yeah.
Yeah. So though I think there's a lot of love for Monica Barbaro from people I know in my life who grew up with Joan Baez's music. They actually, like, some people have even said they think she has a better singing voice than Joan Baez. I think people were impressed with her. And so yeah, I think that's what it is. I think people were surprised it hit the voters at the right time. But I just don't see it. I just don't see enough talk about her. Of course, we've had some organizations go for Elle Fanning in this category, so I think that will be a little bit of a threat with her. And I just think, with all due respect, I mean, the biggest thing that she had done before this was what? Top Gun Maverick. Like, her profile is a little bit too low at this given moment to think that she's gonna, with this SAG nomination, turn it all around and kick out like Selena Gomez. And that goes back to the point we made at the top of the show. She fits into that mold of the voter who's liking Saldaña, Grande, Gomez, Barbaro. Like, I think they're duking each other out, and I don't think they're obviously all not going to get in. And she might suffer from that as well.
No, I agree. Let's move on to, I think, someone who we have been strong on this entire season, even though people have doubted her. Isabella Rossellini in Conclave.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
Plays Sister Agnes, a nun quietly watching the political machinations and games the cardinals are playing for the Pope role until she has her moment to speak up. So when I saw this film at TIFF, I spoke with lots of people afterwards who were like, oh, her role is way too small. Take her out of your Oscar predictions in total. And I just remembered the one scene that I remember in particular leaving the film was her scene of speaking up. And I was just like, that is all you need, that one big moment, and for you to remember it afterwards, and for it to be Isabella Rossellini, international cinema royalty, for her to get in there. It's like, it just makes too much sense to me. She's beloved within the industry. She's never been nominated. She has, like I said, I think the big scene of the film, the one I remember the most.
I mean, Ray Fiennes has a number of...
He has a lot of ones. But for this one really stuck out to me, because especially she's in the film a lot, like quietly watching. And she has other moments where she speaks. People act like this is the only scene where she speaks, but she's quietly watching throughout a lot of the film. And then she has this big moment that there's like a build up to it that I think makes it quite memorable. And she's also the main Conclave member who has been campaigning. Honestly, she was the only one there at TIFF. So
charming. I just watched her on Colbert. Yeah. Like, she has just been exactly what you want out of somebody who's campaigning in this way. I agree with everything you said about her having the great scene. I just think Conclave is strong enough to bring her along. And given that the men are kind of canceling each other out, she stands apart because of that. And this just hit, I think, both of us early on. We were like, this is Kathy Bates in Richard Jewell. This is going to happen. Like, it's that sort of nomination. It's that sort of character.
Even like Judi Dench in Belfast, where it's like, you just need, like, she's got that final scene in Belfast where it's like, well, that's all you needed.
Yeah. So. Again, building the portfolio, you're making sure that we're representing the wide array of people who are going to be voting for the nominations here. I think she speaks to a very specific sort of voter that responds to this sort of performance and these sort of characters. So yeah, I think she's my number 3. Like,
she's a solid number 3 in my opinion. Yeah. I think she, along with those top 2, is locked in. I don't think I've seen some people say she's competing for a win. I don't really believe that. Like, maybe if she wins BAFTA, but I think Conclave would have to be like a super strong Best Picture frontrunner for her to somehow be carried along.
The only way I could see it is that if Ariana Grande and Zoe Saldana literally split the vote, and then she's able to go through. If Conclave continues to rise, you know, and Emilia Perez falls, that maybe. But I mean, you know, who knows? I mean, nobody, I think, at this point would have been predicting Jamie Lee Curtis. So, you know, it's possible. Anything's possible.
No.
Anything's possible in the sport categories.
Don't underestimate the Nepo babies, for sure. Let's speaking of Nepo babies, let's move on to Margaret Qualley in The Substance.
Take care of yourself.
She plays Sue, the younger version of Elizabeth Sparkles, who embraces her newfound youth and attention. Going in her favor, I think she's a very well-liked and established actress in her generation. She's been in lots of films. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Poor Things. She was great in The Maid TV show. If The Substance is strong and Demi Moore is actually like super win competitive, I think it would make sense for Qualley to come along as like a coattail, kind of like Jessie Buckley in The Lost Daughter, playing the younger version of the lead actress in contention. Such a fun nomination. So yeah, and she's hit two of the precursors with Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. I think she'll get BAFTA. If she misses BAFTA, then I would not have her in my 5, honestly. I don't think if you miss the 2 big like industry voting bodies and you just get like the critics nominations with Golden Globes and Critics' Choice, I think that there might be a disconnect there between industry and critics that I might be like.
But I think that because The Substance is coming on strong, after Demi Moore's Golden Globe win, I just think it's hard for people to argue why she shouldn't also be nominated. And because this category is so fluid, I could see a world where she gets in. I think what the also thing that helps her is that she's a lead. I mean, she's one of those.
Most of this category is leads.
Yeah. So
that's why Rossellini stands out so much.
Yeah, I'm starting. I don't know, because I feel like there is less divisive conversation about her performance. And so let's say Felicity falls. And Selena falls. Maybe Qualley and Jamie Lee Curtis are the ones that rise. And then I think that makes sense. You take one from SAG, one of the surprises from SAG, and then a surprise from somewhere else. And then you have your top 3. I could see a world, honestly, where maybe she's my 4. Maybe. She wasn't even on my list. But the more I think about it, I'm like, you know, if Substance is going to do well in picture, maybe director, screenplay, it's going to win actress, at least what we think right now. And then I think Qualley could win screenplay. I mean, maybe there's a fight there to be had in an Anatomy of the Fall sort of way. You know, why wouldn't Margaret Qualley go along? I mean, she is half the movie.
And she is in particular, I think people underestimate this. She is the third act of the film. No spoiler alerts, but like what you see going on in that third act and who has to endure a lot of that makeup is Margaret Qualley. And that's a huge
that part is polarizing though. So maybe I don't. But I also think she doesn't. I don't
associate that with her
because they can't see her
because you can't see her. Yeah, so they associate the image behind us with her, not Alyssa Sue. So, but yeah, I feel pretty good about her, honestly. I think she also did shockingly well with critics early on. Like early on, she was ahead of Zoe Saldana and Ariana Grande in terms of critics wins. So there's clearly a lot of love for her and her performance and the film overall. So I feel pretty decent about it, but we'll get to it when we get to our final 5. We've got lots of people fighting for it. We've got one person left to talk about, and you can all probably imagine it's my passion pick of the year. We've got Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor for Nickel Boys.
I let you down. I'm okay. Yeah.
Hell, I let you down.
No. No, I'm okay. I'm hanging in there.
She plays Hattie, the grandmother of Elwood, a warm and loving presence who raises Elwood and has to fight for him to try and get out of the Nickel Academy. Walk with me here as I go over the pros, guys. She's still got a shot. She's a previous nominee. She does. I believe in her. She's a previous nominee. I think she's a beloved actor within the industry, and I think she has had a great year. She's been in like 3 or 4 films this past year. Most people haven't seen most of them, but she's been in them. It's a showy, emotional role. All of her scenes are long, like emotional, conflicted monologues, close up, like in the background, directly to the camera. She gives the film a sense of like necessary warmth and love and hope that I don't think it would have without her, and I think that makes her, throughout all of her scenes, in my opinion, are the most memorable scenes within the film. And her scenes are also, one in particular, like heartbreaking scenes. I just see, if the film is seen and actors see the film, I don't see how they wouldn't go for her. But that's the issue. The visibility thing is the issue. But I can also see her. It happens most years, being the sole Critics' Choice nominee, who then ends up at the Oscars, doesn't get anything in between. I think previously was America Ferrera last year, Brian Tyree Henry. It happens a lot of years where someone just gets Critics' Choice and then the Oscar nomination, because for some reason Critics' Choice is most in line with what the Oscars do with their acting nominations. But yeah, the cons is obviously Nickel Boys is underperforming. If the film isn't in picture, obviously she isn't in there. And yeah, it's underseen. So I think I'm definitely more hopeful than you.
There's no path for her to be a Brian Tyree Henry, where even if, like, because Causeway, that was the only nomination, but he was able to get in. You think that if Nickel Boys is not in picture, it's not happening for her?
Yeah, no, I think with contenders. I think people saw Causeway because of Jennifer Lawrence. I think if Nickel Boys misses picture, it's because people didn't see it.
There's no reason to. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I just think that I've continued to say that I think that there are going to be people who like will watch it. Like, it's not just the visibility is the issue. The people who do watch it may be turned off from the conceit of how the movie is shot, and that might distract them from recognizing the brilliance that is Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor. I mean, she's great in everything. I thought she was phenomenal in Origin last year. But I continue to think that Nickel Boys is clinging on to screenplay, and even that's not looking great. So
have you seen Nickel Boys yet, or is it still?
I have. And
did you like it?
I don't think you want me to talk about it.
Oh, we'll talk about that another time. Wow. Okay. So different wavelengths there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
listen, I can put that aside and I can just look at the movie, because I think, listen, there are obviously movies that we both talk about that we like or we don't like that are getting in. I mean, you said the pros for Ariana Grande, and I know that you don't love Wicked.
No, I don't.
So I think that, again, my issue with it is I think there are other performances that the voters that will respond to an Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor could find other places to really get behind. I do think that sometimes it's a question of, like, Brian Tyree Henry benefited because I think people really loved him, and that category, it was a little all over the place. I mean, that was the year of Eddie Redmayne, right? Getting in for The Good Nurse. Like, we don't have
get at the Oscars, but
I know,
yeah.
we don't have an Eddie Redmayne. We don't have a Jared Leto in Little Things this year. We have so many contenders that I think that it's like, I just get the sense that people don't want to attach their passion towards something that they feel like is not going to get them anywhere. Does that make sense?
I guess, but I do think Nickel Boys, I believe the Oscars is where this film will perform the best. I think you look at the taste of all the different bodies. Obviously, it won't do well with SAG or BAFTA. It's done decent with critics stuff thus far. It has done well enough, I think. There are Golden Globes also as an international body, similar to BAFTA. I don't think was really going to go for it. So I feel like the Oscars is where like Ramel Ross and Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor and the film in general have the best shot.
It's hard for me to be like, it's not going to get anywhere else, but then the Oscars, boom, is going to come in.
It happens sometimes, though, but there's no history there, no precursors to go off of, so it is a risk to do.
And I feel like when that stuff happens, like Phantom Thread would be my thing of like, it did okay, but then it really blew up at the Oscars. Those are people that the Oscars are familiar with. Like Ramel Ross, they don't know. So I'm glad like he got into the director's roundtable with the Hollywood Reporter. I feel like that boosted the movie's profile. But again, like I just get the sense this is going to go the way of If Beale Street Could Talk. It's a movie that people said, oh, this is a top
one supporting actress.
That's true. Of course, it was coming
without a SAG or BAFTA nomination.
It was the follow-up of Barry Jenkins' Moonlight. So like that.
I know, but if it's Beale Street.
And Regina King was coming off of, I think, 4 Emmy wins. Like that does give her some pedigree.
It does.
Unfortunately, Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor doesn't have.
But
I've always felt If Beale Street Could Talk was the comp for this movie. It was a movie that people were saying, "Oh, this is a top contender," and then it performed. It didn't perform great. It was okay at the box office, not extraordinary, and then it just continued to fade and fade away. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's just what's happening for the movie.
The release has been mishandled, which we can say about a lot of films this year. I think there are from like big distributors as well, like Amazon, MGM, A24, fumbling some of these films, and unfortunately, a lot centered around minority characters. So I think there are some lessons to be learned from this past season. But without further ado, let's get to our final 5 here. This is
before I lose the light.
Here.
Come for me soon.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
let you begin with your 5 for supporting actress. We agree on the top 4 or top 3, I imagine.
Yes. So Zoe Saldana, number 1. Ariana Grande, number 2. Isabella Rossellini, number 3. Margaret Qualley, number 4. Jamie Lee Curtis, number 5.
I'm very tempted by that. So I've got Zoe Saldana number 1, Ariana Grande, and close number 2. Then I've got Isabella Rossellini. I feel like she's pretty safe. I agree with Margaret Qualley at number 4. If the substance is going to be as strong as we think, and it's going to get a Demi Moore win, it just makes sense for Qualley to come along, in my opinion. And then number 5, I'm between Jamie Lee Curtis, because if she gets that BAFTA nom, it's either she ends up being the performance that like just gets a SAG nomination, which happens every year and doesn't carry over anywhere else. But if she gets SAG and then BAFTA, I'm kind of gonna have to put her at the Oscars because those are the 2 biggest precursors. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to wait to do that until after she gets BAFTA. So right now, I'm going to stick with Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor as my number 5 for Nickel Boys, being every year the sole Critics' Choice nominee who carries over at the Oscars. It's just too good of a... I can't go... I have to go down with the ship. I have to.
I respect you I respect you. Again, Charles Melton, I respect your...
I had to go down with that ship too.
That's you. I just think also we have to... Like, when's the last time that a SAG category went 2 for 5? Like, that would be crazy, I feel.
That's happened before, I'm sure, but that would be crazy.
It does. I feel like it doesn't happen that recently when you have so many award shows that dictate the narrative. So, like, that's why I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis getting in there means, okay, they got the majority. 3 for 5 went for the same. So that it's my brain better. So
yeah,
anyway.
No, that makes sense. Once she hits BAFTA, I will drop Ellis-Taylor for Jamie Lee Curtis. You go. So those are our predictions for supporting actress. Lots of different contenders here. I think there's a top 2 or 3 that most people will have. And in those final spots, you've got lots of different options, all of which we went over. So comment who you've got in your predictions down below. Like the video, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you in the next breakdown.
Bye, everyone.